Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome again. Um, as a reminder, we are studying the 29th word of the words, which is about um, angels, immortality of spirit, and resurrection. So we've been studying the second aim for a while, which is primarily focusing on resurrection. We finished our study of the first fundamental point in the second aim, and last week we started our study of the second fundamental point. And we had just read the first point. So the second fundamental point is trying to show us matters that necessitate eternal happiness, why eternal happiness must necessarily be true. So we're going to be given 10 sources and central points. And last week we read this paragraph. And if anyone would like to share any of their reflections throughout the week, one thing that we were especially looking at was this sentence, traces of choice and flashes of purpose are to be seen in every aspect of it. What strikes the eyes through the testimony of their fruits is that in everything is a light of intention, in every function a flash of will, in every motion a gleam of choice, in every composite whole a blaze of wisdom. So we kind of wanted to see if we focused on this or we were able to witness this sort of choice and intention in the creation around us, and how, if we do witness that, it makes us feel and what kind of mindset it puts us in. So if anyone would like to share, go ahead. If not, inshallah, we'll start reading the second point.
Can you hear me okay, Norbert?
Wa alaikum assalam.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just share something that came up. It was a question that I had, and Dr. Yamina answered it, which was very helpful for me. Um, so this text, Alhamdulillah, is teaching us to experience an insightful, illuminated way of looking at the world compared to the old way. So when we go outside and we go on our walks or we interact with our, beloved people, and we are we're told to reflect on every single moment being a trace of choice, divine choice that has flashes of purpose, and in everything there's a light of intention. So as I walked and I experienced the sky and I experienced the trees and the people around me, it was easy for me to just pause and smile. Like, this is not just the person who happens to be my neighbor or the little human that happens to accompany me all the time or the tree that just happened to be positioned on my block. This is divine intention. This was deliberately placed. This is, like a word in my story that I am being asked to read daily by being put in front of me. But what about then the incessant bad news flashes that comes on my phone every 2 minutes? How do I see the trace of choice and the flash of purpose and the light of intention? It was just not as easy to do with that. And so Dr. Yamina just shared with me that when you focus, and when we say observe carefully, right? The first two words, three words she brought to our attention last week. When we observe very carefully the smiles, the love, the tree, the sky, the snowflake, the breeze, the warmth, and really stay there with, I'm going to use the exact words again, the trace of choice, the flash of purpose, the light of intention, the flash of divine will, then it becomes easier to go back to that calamity. And even if just, she said, even if it's just the compassion that floods my heart, even if it's just the sudden tsunami of care that floods my being, then at least in that I can maintain what I'm already practicing outside of that troubling situation. That there's a divine flash of light, there's the divine, you know, choice of care, the flash of purpose in this deep love that I get to experience through watching that. And so it was very helpful for me to pause and just again come back to that place of stability and how I'm going to choose to see what's in my immediate sphere of existence, and then use that to then interpret the universe and the happenings around me. I hope that helps.
Thank you for sharing, Sarah. One thing that I was thinking of was, obviously we're reading a translation of the original text, and sometimes maybe things get lost, but in this specific section, what we were focusing on was traces of choice and flashes of purpose, a light of intention, again, a flash of will, a gleam of choice, a blaze of wisdom. So it's all wording that is connected to light. And I was thinking about a verse in the Quran where we see Prophet Yunus, Jonah, praying, and there's a different section that Imam Nursi wrote about this, in the flashes actually, but he's in this sort of darkness, and sometimes the translation for his prayer is that I was among the wrongdoers. But I remember if I'm not remembering incorrectly, in one of the Receiving Nur retreats, we had talked about how the word zulm, I guess, is also, it comes from the same root for darkness. So I was thinking how when I don't observe carefully and see this light coming through and everything, I just feel like a abstract darkness around me, because everything, like you said, seems very suffocating and just bad news upon bad news and very chaotic. And it seems almost like I can't even have a moment to breathe. So that was kind of the imagery that I was focusing on. Like, this is supposed to light up my world, and it's supposed to kind of take me out of this darkness that I am imposing on myself by not observing carefully. Because I'm not looking at things this way, they feel like they're drowning me, or I feel very imprisoned by everything I'm feeling, and I and my own powerlessness and helplessness. And, last week, one of the questions that I had was, how come the focus here is about happiness? And that was something that Dr. Yamina said, like, when you actually look at the world like this, as we're pointed to in this paragraph, how does it make you feel? And I realized this week, in certain moments where I could actually observe carefully and really focus on this, it really did make me feel so calm and contented. And another thing I was affirming in myself is that it has to be something that I practice a lot, because I can't just expect to look at the world like this in moments of calamity or in difficult situations. I have to look at the world like this as my regular practice, as my routine, which is also something that we've talked about in the past sessions, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to summon that perspective when something more challenging comes my way. So I was thinking, in moments of obvious happiness and contentment, I needed to still observe carefully and just slow down and see, okay, this is also happening purposefully. And thinking that way made my happiness more multiplied, because it made me feel like I was being personally catered to, even in like the tiniest things that made me happy. So that's what I had to say. Again, we have some new people who joined, so if anyone has any reflections on last week's heart work and any reflections that I'd like to share on the passage we focused on, please go ahead. And if not, we'll start reading the second point, inshallah. And Dr. Yamina, if you'd like to share anything, of course, please do. Okay. If not, we can get started on the second point. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Second point. Here we go. Total wisdom is apparent in the universe. Indeed, divine wisdom, which is the representation of pre-eternal favor, proclaims eternal happiness through the tongue of the observance of benefits and following of purposes demonstrated by the universe in its entirety. Because if there was no eternal happiness, it would be necessary, through pride, to deny the wisdom and benefits which are self-evidently constant in the universe. Since the 10th truth of the 10th word demonstrates this truth like the sun, we shall content ourselves with that and cut short the discussion here. This is rather short, but I feel like it's very dense. So I will read it again. And if you have any questions, you can write it in the chat or raise your hand, inshallah. So just a reminder, just reading the text doesn't really open it up for us. We have to kind of ask questions for it to make more sense. So don't think any question is, insignificant. If you think of anything, please share, and that way we can also just get more out of it, all of us. Total wisdom is apparent in the universe. Indeed, divine wisdom, which is the representation of pre-eternal favor, proclaims eternal happiness through the tongue of the observance of benefits and following of purposes demonstrated by the universe in its entirety. Because if there was no eternal happiness, it would be necessary through pride to deny the wisdom and benefits which are self-evidently constant in the universe. I think so we're just gonna assume that the 10th word, since we didn't discuss it together as a group, we're just gonna try to try to understand this as it stands here. Total wisdom is apparent in the universe, and then in the second sentence, I am having a hard time. Divine wisdom, which is the representation of pre-eternal favor. This I don't understand. Proclaims eternal happiness through the tongue of the observance of benefits and following of purposes demonstrated by the universe in its entirety. Any other questions about this? Dr. Yamina, would you like to share with us how we should read this?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
You can
alaikum.
just flip the sentence and you can start with the benefits. Everything through the tongue of the observance of benefits. It means everything that when we observe carefully, we see that everything is done in a way, the wisdom, the total wisdom means everything in created not a random order just to look good. No, it's an order that always the purpose is to fulfill many benefits. Here benefits is actually maslaha, which is more than just benefits. It's benefits that its welfare is also included here. The welfare of life, of all beings, or every creation is benefiting from the rest of the creation, and it is of benefit to the others. So it's a very intricate, interconnected web of benefits. And following of purposes, here is hikmah, demonstrated by the universe in its entirety. Actually, it's locally and universally. Wherever we look, this rule is there. There is a mutual benefit from everything. And there is nothing that is happening without purpose, without benefit. And that's why in science, when they can't solve something, they don't say, oh, maybe it's just there. No, they say, we have not found it yet. So it means we are so used to observing this that intuitively we know that this is a universal law of total wisdom. And the word for favor here is inaya, which includes care, help, favor. So the fact that we look around and everything has a purpose that is beneficial for the thing itself and other things around it. And so many benefits and so many things we don't know, but each time we hear new things, but we don't have to go into the details. just what we know in our own observation, we can confirm this reality. So this fact, this reality is saying, now this is the claim, this apparent total wisdom proclaims eternal happiness. So this is what we want to check. Is this true? And in the second paragraph, he is answering why this is so. But do we first agree that we observe this favor, this care, this everywhere? Everything is created in an orderly, purposeful way that always bears many benefits. And this benefits here is maslaha, is more than it's benefits, but essential benefits, without which there would be, for instance, no life, no nothing. And the small ones are there too. It's all a range of benefits, mashallah. And then he says in the second paragraph, why is this so? Why this fact, how is it related to eternal happiness? Not only it's related, it proclaims through the tongue that those facts that we observe, all of them are speaking to us and proclaiming to us eternal happiness. It means the eternal abode. It means they are talking about the hereafter, about Jannah. Because if there was no eternal happiness, it would be necessary to deny the wisdom and benefits which are self-evidently constant in the universe. Everything changes, things go and come, but the law of benefiting, the law of wisdom, the law of mercy, the law of caring is constant. That, he's saying, it would mean if there is no eternal happiness, let's leave the happiness aside now. If there is no eternity, it means if all this, what we are observing, not the events themselves, but remember the events are all speaking, proclaiming the divine names. Here, for instance, wisdom or caring, or so that wisdom won't be wisdom. If it is not eternal, then it means it's not wise. There's no wisdom. That benefit is not benefit. That caring is not caring anymore. It's following the same pattern as the first point. And he's referring here to the 10th truth. I just opened the 10th truth. I won't read the whole because I see that the 10th truth is really long. This is part of the 10th word that he mentioned in the beginning. The 10th word is about the resurrection, and it's a long treatise, and it's very important because Iman bil Akhirah. So Iman bil Akhirah is so much emphasized in the Quran and in the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, peace and blessings be upon him. Because without Akhirah, our belief in God, our Iman billah is incomplete. So that's why right after Iman billah, there is Iman bil Akhirah, belief in the hereafter. And when we look at in the Quran, the belief and yaqeen, having certainty about Akhirah, is very important, because without that yaqeen, without that certainty, how we live our life is going to be totally different. Having certainty in Akhirah requires to be able to see how transience and impermanence actually is the window, the gate onto the eternal world. So it's everything is indicating that world, the eternity. And when we learn how to interact with the world in that way, and then we are not running, avoiding the transience, we are present with the transience because it is within the transience that we can find the eternal. Then we will be more acquainted with the beautiful names of God and the fact that they are permanent. Everything is passing, yet it comes again, and what is constant, what is permanent is the meaning of the beautiful names of God. Like in this point, it's, for instance, wisdom and the care and the benefits. And if we don't see that, then if there is no, then we are stuck in the transient world. And if we're stuck in the transient world, then there is no wisdom, nothing, because it's happening without true purpose, without lastingness. If there's no lastingness, everything is negated. So in this 10th truth, the 10th word, which is about proving the existence, showing evidence for the resurrection, the reality and the truth of resurrection, here and now, not after we die. We die, it's too late. I need to be certain about it now and live my life accordingly with my true purpose pertains to Akhirah, not to something in this world. Anything in this world is only a means. It cannot be a goal, a purpose. And if I am confused about that, I need, it means I need clarity. And that clarity comes with first being sure, having the certainty, and living accordingly, making the choice to, it can't be just, if it's just an intellectual information, a knowingness, then it won't make much difference for my life. So to the extent that I practice it, my yaqeen, my certainty will increase, and then things will start changing. Priorities to make choices will change totally. Sometimes 180% degrees, because everything, the meaning of everything changes if it is, it pertains to this transient world only, or if this world is only a passing place. How we deal with everything is going to change. So that in the 10th word, where he teaches us how to read the signs, interact with events in the world in order to be able to observe how everything is testifying to Akhirah. The 10th truth, it's called the gate of wisdom and grace and mercy and justice, and the manifestation of the names of Al-Hakim, the all-wise, Al-Karim, the generous, the just, and the merciful. And I'm not going to, I'm just going to look quickly, and oh, there are lots of things. So I'm going to just choose things that are for me clearer to follow, easier to follow. Is it at all reasonable that he should impose? So I'm not starting from the beginning. I'm starting in, is it at all in the middle of the 10th truth? Is it at all reasonable that he should impose, he, God, should impose on every being, even the seed, a task as heavy as a tree, because a tree comes from, through a seed, is created through a seed, and mount in it instances of his wisdom as numerous as the flowers, You have a seed, it grows, it becomes a huge tree with lots of flowers and fruits. And so is it reasonable that he should impose on every being, even the seed, a task as heavy as a tree, and mounted in it instances of his wisdom, as numerous as the flowers, and the beneficial aspects as numerous, and beneficial aspects as numerous as the fruits, but assign to that task, to those instances of his wisdom and those beneficial aspects, a purpose pertaining only to this world, one as small as a seed. If it pertains to this world, it is smaller than a seed, because there is only the now. This world, there is only the now. The past is not here, the future is not here, because we have in our perception, it seems to us, because we are endowed with imagination and all kinds of abilities, alhamdulillah, it seems to us very vast in space and in time. In time, it's not. So if it's not in time, so in space, it can be as vast as it wants. It is very limited. It is flowing, something that is transient, impermanent, and flowing. And this is important because it is in the 33rd word, we saw how again and again it was in the flow that we see the ayat, in the flow that we see how they are indicating the source they are flowing to, flowing from, and flowing back to. So they are proclaiming their source. So is it, if all these things, a seed grows into a huge tree, not only a seed, everything else is like this, with lots of flowers, lots of fruits, and those fruits have so many vitamins and this, and you can write a PhD thesis on those fruits and everything, and they benefit the birds and the animals and humans, but at the end it's only for this world. Then it means those huge tasks at the end, they have no true purpose. They have no purpose because it just ends. There's nothing. There's no true meaning. I'm carrying on with the paragraph that he should make that purpose nothing more than the life of this world, something less valuable than a grain of mustard seed. And he's using the mustard seed because it's a tiny seed. That he should not make of beings seeds for the world of meaning and tillage for the realm of the hereafter, for them to yield there the true and worthy results in Akhirah. That he should permit such significant alternations to remain without purpose, to be empty and vain. That he should not turn their faces towards the world of meaning and the hereafter. There is no meaning without eternity, without Akhirah. So that they might there reveal their true purposes and fitting results. And their true purposes look to the beautiful names of God, and therefore they look to Akhirah. They can't look to the thing themselves. In this transient world, everything ends very quickly. I'll carry on. Can intelligence at all accept that God should impose on man and his senses duties as numerous as the hair on his head? So it was the seed, now it's human being, but give him no more than an earthly reward, something no more valuable than a hair. And if we look at our own heart and soul, all this, and we'll die, and there will be nothing else. If we really, really believe in it, either you go mad or you leave everything. People can only carry on by pretending there is a meaning if they don't believe in God and in Akhirah. That he should act meaninglessly in a fashion contrary to his true justice and opposed to his true wisdom. Again, is it at all possible that God, who proves and shows himself to be a possessor of absolute wisdom, by attaching to every animate being, or even to every member, like the tongue, indeed to every creature, instances of his wisdom and sources of benefits, as numerous as the result and the fruits he has attached to a tree. Look at the tongue. It can recognize all kinds of tastes, all kinds of food, and the combination of the food, and separate them and remember them. You can't even write, a computer can't do that. Even if a whole team comes together, they can't do that. And you can't say, that's it, my tongue is won't be able to taste a new thing anymore. No, a new thing, we taste it and we recognize it and we say, I've never tasted something like this, or it's similar to this taste or something. How does it know? One tongue, almost like not very important in a sense, unless it looks to akhirah, unless, as Imam Nursi says, if you remember in the 6th word, I think it was, we start seeing it not as the gatekeeper of the stomach, but as an inspector of the divine kitchens, the divine blessings. And each time it tastes something and it says, Subhanallah, Ya Razaq, Ya Jamil, Ya Alim, Ya Qadir. Unless it's like that, it's the tongue doesn't need to be that sophisticated. So he attaches to the tongue, indeed to every creature, instances of his wisdom and sources of benefits as numerous as the results and the fruits he has attached to a tree. Is it at all possible that he should fail to bestow of himself the greatest of all instances of his wisdom, the most significant of all sources of benefit, the most necessary of all results, that which makes his wisdom into wisdom? Because otherwise it's not wisdom. His blessings into blessings, his mercy, his rahmah into mercy, the source and aim of all his wisdom and bounty and mercy and beneficence. What is the source of all that? Eternity, the meeting with him in akhirah, in the hereafter, and everlasting bliss, everlasting happiness, sa'ada. It's a word that's used in the Quran, by the way, Sa'id. Were he to abandon this, he would plunge all of his doings under utter pointlessness and cause himself to resemble a being who constructed a palace, each stone of which contained thousands of designs, in each corner of which thousands of adornments were to be found, and in each part of which thousands of precious household instruments and tools were provided, but failed to build a roof over it, so that everything rotted and was needlessly destroyed. No, by no means can this be true. Hasha wa kalla. From absolute goodness comes forth goodness, and from the possessor of absolute beauty comes forth beauty. So too, nothing devoid of purpose can emerge from the possessor of absolute wisdom. I think that sums up the and the thing about Sa'id, I think it's in Surah Hud, at the end of Surah Hud. يوم يأتي لا يتكلم يوم يأتي لا تكلم نفس إلا بإذنه فمنهم شقي وسعيد. So on that day, the day of judgment, when that day comes, no soul, no nafs, no self, no soul will speak, لا تتكلم, except by his permission. And some of the people will be shaqi. What's the opposite of happy, but not unhappy? Like miserable, let's say. And some happy. And then there is a description of those who are shaqi, the wretched ones. And then there is وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ سُعِدُوا, and those who have been blessed with happiness, sa'ada. If you remember, Imam Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, one of his books is Kimya al-Sa'ada, the alchemy of happiness. So this happiness is directly related to eternity, to akhirah. There is no anything that we long for and that is necessary for our happiness. If it is not permanent, then it's as if it's not. And it does not, if we look at ourselves, we understand, because we're being created with the need for eternal happiness, therefore eternal wisdom, eternal care, eternal, all the names of God that we need.
Jazakallah, Dr. Amina. I was thinking I joined a book club, I guess, recently, and we're reading The Conference of the Birds, which is like a long poem, I guess, written by Attar.
Yeah.
And it's a Sufi / mystic text, I guess. And the people in the book club are not necessarily Muslims. So yesterday we had our second session, and in the text there's a lot of discussion about transience. And I asked this question where I was like, how do you guys feel if you actually believe that once you die, that's the end, or that's it, like you're just gonna become dirt or dust or ash, and it'll just be nothingness. And people were just really unhappy about that, because it's like different kinds of people are in the group. So a lot of the previous conversation was about people's backgrounds and
but the book, that it's about journeying to God.
yes.
So how are they unhappy? What are they unhappy about?
Well, that was the thing, because I feel like they were just really skeptical, because they were like, oh, but reading some of the things in the book, they're just like, I don't know, like, if this is right, because like I really love my wife, I love my daughters, like that has to count for something, like it's not just transient. So I was
but that's correct. That is why we have on one side this more than feeling. It shouldn't be just for nothing, because it is something. It has meaning. Yet we observe transience. So that it is this contradiction in the Risale. Imam Nursi always emphasized this. This is this contrast, this contradiction that makes us feel the need to look for true meaning. How come I have a need for meaning and I crave meaning, and so much that we have to ascribe meaning to things in order to give meaning to our life. But if we don't find akhirah, we don't find the source of eternity, if we don't find God, then yes, you want it to be meaningful. But if there is nothing, if you truly believe that death is the end, then that love becomes meaningless. But because we believe that it is not meaningless, That is what sets us on the journey to find God in the world and within ourselves.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of the middle step of what we read in the second point. So I'm witnessing the total wisdom or the divine wisdom. And then to go from that to eternal happiness, I have to look at it in my own life. So to feel love for my family or to experience these things that to me, okay, it seems like there's a point, there's a meaning in it. I like it. I find something in it. I don't find it absurd or random. But then to go from that to nothingness makes it meaningless, right? So that's why when I think of it that way, this second part makes sense, because if there was no eternal happiness, then I would have to deny the wisdom. So I am experiencing all these nice things, and then it's just nothing at the end. And then one thing you said, Dr. Yamina, that I highlighted was that, okay, the world is only the now. So even though we experience it as this kind of like vast thing, actually everything is ending as it happens. So I think to myself, it's kind of like self-consolation, I guess, if you don't really have certainty in this. I'll just live 60 full years of, my life. Like I'll just live it to the fullest. I'll enjoy myself as much as I can, and I'll do all these things. But when you really think about it, you don't, like, once it's already past you, you don't have access to it. And what's in the future, you don't guarantee it.
And
So
even
that-
in the now, with that, knowing it, if the belief is that this is all there is, then no one can fully enjoy themselves right now.
Yeah.
People say they're enjoying themselves, they go and drink. Why do you drink? You become unconscious. If you are so happy, you should be aware, stay awake to truly enjoy it. Because although the physical world is flowing, we are, remember, this is about the angels and the spirit. Just like we are not only this limited body, the ruh is not limited like the body. The physical world is also not limited. That's why, although we confuse with our illusion of the past and the future, but if we truly stay in the now, we will experience the world not in a limited way, because the malakut aspect of things that looks to the unseen, that look to the beautiful names of God, that look therefore the angels and everything that is the divine command, then the ruh will experience the world not as that tiny little, just when you say it's here, it's not here, it's always flowing. It will have access to that aspect of the world that looks to akhirah, that looks to the unseen, and that is not limited, that looks to permanence, here and now. That's how we get the certainty of akhirah. And just thinking about the world flowing like this, and it's almost like you want to catch it and you can't catch it because it flows as much. It's like trying to catch water by using our hands, flowing water through. We can't. It's very frustrating. That's why what we do, we try to distract ourselves from that reality. But that reality is pointing to the permanence that we crave, and that the ruh is created to confirm and to need and to long for and to enjoy and appreciate when we find it. That's why the love for your family, it's meaningful because it's coming from a meaningful source, from eternal source, and we have been created with that need, and we've been taught those names, and the fitra craves it and recognizes it and knows that it is meaningful. It looks to a permanent source of divine love. But when we don't confirm this reality, then we start, the fitra says one thing and the mind says something totally contradictory. And it becomes very difficult to live peacefully. And the only solution is to distract ourselves from that huge contradiction.
Yeah. I want to give just a few minutes if anyone else has any questions, because we've covered a lot for the second point. So if you'd like to ask any clarifying questions or if you have any reflections, please go ahead. Okay. I think we have time to read the third point. We probably won't get through the whole thing, but we can start the discussion, inshallah. Third point. Through the testimony of reason, wisdom, deduction, and experience, the absence of futility and absence of waste in the creation of beings, which is constant, indicate eternal happiness. The sign of there being no waste and nothing vain in creation is the all-glorious Maker's choosing and preferring the shortest way, the closest point, the lightest form, and the best manner in the creation of everything, and his sometimes imposing 100 duties on one thing, and his attaching 1,000 fruits and aims to a slight being. Since there is no waste and nothing in vain, there will surely be eternal happiness. For non-existence and no return would make everything futile. Everything would be a waste. The absence of waste in all creation, and in man, for instance, which is established by science, demonstrates that man's limitless disposition and infinite hopes, ideas, and desires will not be wasted either. In which case, man's deep-rooted desire to be perfected points to the existence of a perfection, and his desire for happiness proclaims that he is definitely destined for eternal happiness. If it was not so, contrary to all other beings, which are made wisely and with purpose, those authentic immaterial faculties, those elevated hopes, would be waste and futile. They would wither up and be for nothing. Since this truth is proved in the 11th truth of the 10th word, we cut the discussion short here. I really like this one. I feel like this one feels a bit closer to understand or relate to. Okay, so the first part of it is, and there's just so much in the text. through testimony of reason, wisdom, deduction, and experience. So we have 4 different testimonies here. The absence of futility and absence of waste in the creation of beings, which is constant, indicate eternal happiness. The sign of there being no waste and nothing vain in creation is the all-glorious Maker's choosing and preferring the shortest way, the closest point, the lightest form, and the best manner in the creation of everything, and his sometimes imposing 100 duties on one thing, and his attaching 1,000 fruits and aims to a slight being. I feel like we can all kind of experientially confirm this. In ourselves and in the world around us. We don't like the waste we see is always man-made, or it's because of our misuse of what's being created around us. But in creation itself, that's unimpeded or is not corrupted by our intervention, there is no waste. But when I look at my own life, for example, and this is just a very crude example, I'm just one person, but there's so much trash that comes out of my house every week that just has to go to the landfill. And it's not like my house is not a self-sustaining, wasteless kind of system, and it's very small. So when I think of the whole world, the whole universe, moving in this intricate order, and there's no waste that we see. Everything has a use, a benefit, and I guess that kind of goes to the second point where we talked about the observance of benefits, which was kind of expanded. So this principle that there is an absence of waste in the creation of beings, then when I confirm that, it makes it easier to believe or to see that, okay, so if my creator doesn't even waste, a fallen leaf, of which there are billions every year, then he will surely not waste all the dreams and hopes and abilities that I have. And I think like this is also language that we're very used to, wasted potential, or when people die really young, we talk about this, like she had so much potential, or they had dreams, we talk about people like this. So it seems like just in a fitri or natural, quote unquote, way, we tend to think about this. Like, if we just look at this person, like a young person who died, a child who died, if we think that's the end for that child, we are very uncomfortable because they had dreams and they had potential and they could have grown up and done all these things. But even that is never enough. Even if they lived a full life, there's still so much more to do and so many more dreams to have had to be had. So I really like this point. Would anyone like to ask any questions or share any reflections? You guys are so quiet this week. Okay, I'll keep going. Since there is no waste and nothing in vain, there will surely be eternal happiness. For non-existence and no return would make everything futile. Everything would be a waste. The absence of waste in all creation, and in man, for instance, which is established by science, demonstrates that man's limitless disposition and infinite hopes, ideas, and desires will not be wasted either. In which case, man's deep-rooted desire to be perfected points to the existence of perfection, and his desire for happiness proclaims that he is definitely destined for eternal happiness. If it was not so, contrary to all other beings which are made wisely and with purpose, those authentic immaterial faculties, those elevated hopes, would be waste and futile. They would wither up and be for nothing. This is a really interesting point too. I mean, so the material aspect of things, okay, are kind of the first step that we're witnessing. And then just looking at the creation of this desire to be perfected, the creation, like we find in ourselves this desire for happiness. I think also, you know, when people are unhappy with these desires, so the reason they, you know, they become workaholics or alcoholics or whatever else is because they can't get rid of that desire. So this deep-rooted desire to be perfected, this desire for happiness, it's created in them. So it's not really under their control.
It is, and also the most intense desire that motivates all our other whatever we say. Some people want wealth, some people want fame, some people want they have a passion for something, for cooking, for having a family, for building, for painting, for drawing. All of them, if you go okay and behind and behind and behind, it's for happiness. That's how we've been created. Why do they call that his passion? His passion, it means that's what makes him happy. And when we do things that we don't like, we are not motivated, we don't get the energy. Why? Because we don't like them. It means, what does it mean? They don't make me, I don't feel happy when I do it. So this is a very strong desire, and we keep wasting it. There's so much, you know, whenever you read, you hear people talking, you open a video, you know, you see all kinds of videos about happiness. Everyone is selling happiness, but no one is saying, yeah, but how can this be happiness if it's limited to this worldly life? If it ends with death, it can't make me happy here and now. I will be just cheating ourselves, because truly nothing can make us happy if it's not permanent, if it doesn't look to eternity. That's why in the Quran we are told, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Only with the remembrance of God do hearts find that peace, that satisfaction, that true, real, deep happiness, because only in his presence, all the things we look for, they all look, Imam Nursi, I don't remember if we read, but he says it in many places, but there is a Risala where he expands on it, where in the 20th word, I think, all the sciences, for instance, they all have their reality pertains to the beautiful names of God. If you love medical studies and medicine, it looks to the name Shafi primarily, and different other names like wise, wisdom, and all kinds of different names. So all the sciences, it means all the activities that we are seeking happiness in, actually, they themselves cannot be the source of happiness. They cannot give us happiness. And if we don't see through them and beyond them, find the names of God and find God, then we will never get that true peace, true happiness, because it will be always limited to this world. So it's a happiness that is very short-lived. And if we truly stay with it, or deep down, even when we are doing that, deep down, something is empty. We know something is missing. And the missing part is huge. So yes, this is a very important point, I think.
The pursuit of happiness is one of the rights in is it in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights? One of them, but
Is it?
yeah, I think man's pursuit of happiness is,
I was not aware.
one sec.
If it takes you to Akhirah, then that's good. That's what it's given for, to us for, actually, that need, that desire.
Yeah, so we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Now that you read it, I remember reading something like this, vaguely.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like this third point. I'm also thinking of I think as maybe like a rebellion to this innermost desire. We try to make sense of our own waste, but it doesn't really satisfy people. So sometimes an artist will draw something, and then or someone will make something, and without anyone seeing it or admiring it, they will just destroy it. Because they want, I think because they want to kind of make that make sense in their worldview, but it's not satisfying. Like even when you just bake cookies from a box, you want it to be appreciated and eaten and see that people appreciated it and enjoyed it. So when I think of all the things that I'm created with and that are created around me, it just goes against what he's saying in the beginning here. Testimony of reason, wisdom, deduction, and experience. I'm not sure about deduction, what he means, but reason, wisdom, and experience, it makes sense. I mean, one of the examples that kind of Imam Nursi gives, I guess, is, this table, like a feast with all this food, and this image, right, we can think of like our Thanksgiving spreads or whatever else, where you're celebrating something and you make all kinds of foods and desserts and everything. And then imagine you just pack it all up and throw it in the garbage. It just doesn't make sense. So thinking that just towards material things, we have such a negative reaction to it. But then when we think about all the immaterial things, the hopes, ideas, desires, it becomes even more emphasized. So this one, I feel like this one's really for me, very strong proof for eternal happiness. Really hits it on the head, I guess. We have 15 more minutes. I don't know if I want to start reading another one. Oh, go ahead, Siba.
Yeah, I had a question like whatever we read today, and so it's all our observation and our experience and the information. Like it doesn't make sense for things to be made to such perfection, and then going into futility and Allah creating everything. And we are seeing around us also like everything that has been created has made it in a way that it doesn't end without a purpose, like it serves a purpose. And um, so these are all observations, and we are making sense of it.
I can't hear you anymore. Is it just me?
So they're overlapping, or the final deduction comes from the Quran. That's my question.
I'm sorry, I missed like a whole middle part of what you said. There was no sound for me.
Audible?
But
Was I not clear or not audible?
no, I was just not getting sound. I don't know if you guys got
Okay.
the sound. I just didn't get any
I
sound.
didn't get it. It was not audible.
Okay, so I can repeat myself. Then my question is more like when I see all these things, and it makes sense. Like this cannot be futile. You know, Allah cannot make something. As I'm seeing everything as a purpose, and even like Nurvana was mentioning, even the leaves that crumble and they go back and they serve a purpose. You know, nothing is going to waste. So that's my observation, and it's still I think the information and processing of information. Like, so is it itself a confirmation for Akhirah, or do I go back to Quran and confirm it, that the confirmation I get is from the Quran, that Allah is saying, you know, you look around and then Allah's words are even implied same.
The way to look, this way to look, Imam Nursi takes it from the Quran. For instance, one of the ayahs at the beginning of this 10th word, when he uses this way of look and see and uses this reasoning, he's teaching us how to reason in the way we are taught in the Quran. So the ayah says, فَانظُرْ إِلَى آثَارِ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ كَيْفَ يُحْيِي الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا. For instance, إِنَّ ذَلِكَ لَمُحْيِي الْمَوْتَ وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. So in the Quran, we are told, look at the how do you say,
They translated it as signs here, or imprints.
Like the imprints, yeah. That's how he was saying there, in the second word, the words he was using. No, in the first point, I think. Like you see the prints, of Allah's rahmah, His mercy, His rahmah is much more than mercy. How He gives life to the earth after it dies. So here also, He's using like, look, this is used a lot in the Quran. Unzur or alam tara. So look, haven't you seen? Don't you see? So usually in the tafsir, it's a tafsir of the words, the meaning of the words. It's used more on the language, the Arabic. Imam Nursi focuses more on, although he sometimes gives that some information, he knows that, but he knows that most people, first, they don't have enough knowledge of the language. Second, the language is there as a vehicle, as an ayah to what is going on in the world. So he starts and says, look around, see. Don't you see? Observe carefully. Do you see for instance, the athar, the imprints of this? Don't you see the rahmah in this? And then at the end, you come to a place where now you can go to the Quran and confirm, yes, Sadaqallahu al-Azim. What God is telling me in this is truly God's word, and this is the truth. So we are using the Quran like a map, like a treasure map. We are told in the Quran that he is usually at the end. These are all, you can find them in the Risala. For instance, in the 24th word, it's direct passages from the Quran. So it's about the methodology of the Quran. In many verses of the Quran, you will find the names of God, 2 names of God at the end of the ayah. If you follow the ayah, if you read it often, you won't see why is this ayah ending with these names? If you stay with the ayah and apply it to your life, to the world, then you will see how it is related to those ayats. So here it's an application. It's not divorced from the Quran. Although it seems reasonable, once we learn it from the Quran, because it's reasonable, because it fits the fitrah so perfectly, the teaching of the Quran, because it's God speaking to me, God teaching me. He knows us, and he speaks to us in a way that we understand and that fits the creation out there and within us as well. So it seems like, oh, this makes sense. So it seems like, oh, I don't need really the Quran. Look, just through reasoning and observing, I can find it. Yes, but without the teaching of the Quran, it does not come to us to look at things in this way. Look at all the people who are not based on wahy, and especially not on Quran. They don't look at things in this way, in a systematic way. Even the people who have a divine source, a religion from a divine source, and they will say everything is from God, but they don't have a way to systematically find in everything, like it's, as we read before, like everything is like stamped by the stamp of Ahadiyya and Wahidiyya, and it's proclaiming the Shahada, saying La ilaha illallah. My creator can only be the creator of everything. My maker can only be the maker of everything. Can only be the one who knows everything and is powerful over everything. And it's making tasbih. It's saying nothing else can do it. It's refuting shirk and proclaiming the beautiful names of God. And that's why it's called Alam Shahada. And in the Quran, we are taught to do it systematically, and it's done in the Risale Nur, it's tafsir. It's done in such a way that you say, okay. When you go to the Quran, you say, yes, of course. Yes, but it came from there. That's why. So we use the map. The map says, take 2 steps here, turn here, go here, you will find the sign there. You say, yes, I found the sign. The treasure is there. The treasures are the names of God. And then we say, oh, I found the treasure. Yes, because we use the map. The map is given to us in the Quran, inshallah. So now we can go back and say, yes, Alhamdulillah. This is the truth. And the more we read the Quran and we read the creation like this and we read our life like this, the more we will see how they confirm each other.
It complements each other and it motivates you.
That's why we read one with the other. And that's why the first wahi was Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. It's like the classical example would be like a movie. without a language, in a language I don't understand. How much can I understand that movie? But I see the pictures, but I don't understand what they are saying. That will be the creation, the world without Quran. And then the Quran comes, it translates, Imam Nursi says it is the tongue of the unseen in the world of the seen. It is the translator of the signs, the ayat in the creation. So now I listen to the Quran, I learn the language of the Quran. Now I learn the language of I start understanding what's going on. The more I understand, and the more I watch carefully, the more I learn that language. And if I just go and read the Quran without being aware that is translating and talking about the world for me, then it will be like I have the screen is black, doesn't show the pictures, and I'm just listening to the movie. I don't understand what's going on either. It's beautiful when we start realizing, oh, like the Quran is translating everything around us. The Quran is not only, doesn't become only relevant, because I used to hear like people say, it's not like it's relevant to our life. No, it's indispensable. Without it, I cannot find the true lasting meaning, purpose of anything. I may not deny the existence of Akhirah. That is not belief in Akhirah. Not denying is a good start, but it's only a start. We need to have belief, and not only belief in the Quran. It talks about وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ وَهُمْ بِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. So that's yaqeen bil akhirah. We get it when we start reading, inshallah, realizing that the Quran makes everything speak, and everything we'll realize that they are all proclaiming the names of God. They are all mirroring all the divine names. They are all, wherever you look, فَثَمَّ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ. They are all speaking about God, making Him known, glorifying Him, making hamd, tasbih, just in case you fall into shirky perception. No, they are refuting that. It can't be. Just make a little bit of effort to relate the two and to start seeing how they complement each other and read them together. Inshallah.
Yeah, I think the Quran becomes alive when we take the ayahs and see around, and the world becomes a Quran.
Yes, exactly. It becomes, God speaks, Imam Nursi says, you will see as He creates, He speaks, and as He speaks, He creates. Both of them are divine speech, one through word, one through action. And if He didn't speak through action, what He says in the Quran wouldn't make much sense to us. What does it mean He is all merciful, He is all powerful, if we could not witness it? That's why witnessing Shahada is so central.
I pulled up the verse at the beginning of the 10th word, so this is what I got from it. So look then, right, is kind of the instruction or the first step in the treasure map. And then we're given the methodology, like how am I supposed to look at this thing? I'm looking at life being restored to earth after its death. I'm supposed to observe this and see that it's a sign of God's mercy. And then, so this is how I'm supposed to read it, to look around. And then the third part is the names, the beautiful names. It is who quickens the dead. He is powerful over all things. So this is what then I can confirm. So I'm given this sort of like nice kind of wrapped up list of things I can do, which
And it's the how here.
Yeah.
How? Because usually we give the how to science,
Mhm.
and science means it looks at it in a materialistic way, which means atheistic way. It means there is no God in that way of looking, even if you are a believer, as if they were not signs that are mirroring and reflecting and proclaiming the names of God, as if it's happening on its own, because there is no objective, neutral way of looking at anything. We have a language of agency. When we don't give the agency to the true maker, we are giving the agency to things themselves. But the fact is that when we look carefully, we observe carefully, there is nothing that happens without in the vacuum, not in interconnection with everything else. So everything science says, the language it uses is all false, and it is foolishness. The way it says this does this. Can't do that. It can't even make itself. How can it do anything? And so that's why the how, and we think, I remember, now I don't deal with much with science anymore, but I remember it would be like even Muslims saying, but it is why. When you ask why, then it is here where God comes. No, there is no why. It is a fake distinction. The true why comes through the how, because they will tell you why, Allah will tell you. Yeah, but you don't know who Allah is. Why? How do you even know God? How do you believe in Him? That belief is not true belief, because it's not based on any evidence. The heart doesn't tremble when we say Allah, if Allah is not a living reality for me, if it's only something that I cannot deny. But here it's in the Quran, it's how, كيف, إلى الإبل كيف خلقت, وإلى السماء كيف رفعت. Here, إلى انظر إلى آثار رحمة الله كيف يحيي الأرض, كيف. How He creates. In the how we will find the beautiful names. So we have to focus on the how. Cause, effect. If we give the effects to the cause, finished. There is no God, it's all shirk. All things becomes, every cause is a mini God. But we don't do it just because we are Muslims and we believe in God. No, because that thing cannot do anything. It cannot even sustain itself. Water, it doesn't have knowledge, it doesn't have power, it doesn't have consciousness, it doesn't have anything, it doesn't have life, it cannot give life, it cannot do anything. So it is employed. Whoever is making it, whoever is giving life through it, is the maker of all living things, and He is the one who can give life. The earth cannot give life, it doesn't have life. With life, it's easier because nothing has life in itself, and the living beings like us, we know that life is not inherent to us. It comes and goes. We cannot even hold it. How can we give it to anything else? Human beings are so greedy, they wouldn't give it to anyone, they would keep it for themselves. So Alhamdulillah, it's beautiful. Quran is really, really, especially when you come from a background of science, the whole creation it's not neutral and it's not materialistic, and there is no neutral way to look at the world. Either there is no God or there is one God. And there is no God, the way they talk about the universe, as if each thing is a God, each thing knows everything. It's full of contradictions. It doesn't make sense at all. And all the benefits and everything in science, because scientists mostly are like that, so they cannot deny the purpose and the benefits, but at the same time, they say it just happened to be. How does it happen to be all the time, constantly, everywhere? At the same time, the contradiction comes from there is an assumption without being spelled explicitly, the assumption of laws, like the things happen in the same way everywhere. No one, this is not a law that anyone spells out, but it is assumed. It's like metaphysical things that are assumed. But at the same time, they will tell you, it just happened. Everything is coincidence. Can you imagine how obstinate you must be to say that every day, everything is happening in the same way, in the best way? Here it was the shortest, the most beneficial, the most economical, using the least to get the most. They all agree on this, but it just happened. It evolved. There is, according to them, there is no consciousness, no will, no purpose, the first point. That's why that first point is so important. Because otherwise everything goes, is negated. And this point is important also because most of us went through that training of seeing things in a way that is incompatible with the Quranic way of seeing things. And we never question them, because that's how we tend also to see without the school teaching. That's how we tend to see things happening on their own. But once we learn how to look at things in the Quran, everything starts falling into place, and everything makes sense, and everything is meaningful. And then you go back to science and it becomes like, what is like lies and nonsensical things, and it's called reasoning, and it's called scientific reasoning on top of that. So alhamdulillah ala ni'mat al-Quran.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so I will take last points, but let's try to make them concise. We are almost 8 minutes past, and then we will close up, inshallah. So go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Those are it's hard for me to believe, maybe because as we always believe in Allah and we always see power Allah over everything, and the way the Dr. Yamina was explaining, it's hard to believe for me. I don't know how people even believe something that they see everything so precisely happening, and then they thinking that just happened their own. And then smaller simplest things that it cannot happen his own. I was talking to my neighbor, and he would just pass him by with his dog, and he just say hi. I don't know what was the conversation, but I always bring in Allah or God's name in the conversation. And he goes, oh, I don't know. I don't believe in God. I believe in signs and things. I said, oh, that's good. Alhamdulillah. So the sign is how this happened. You think the science, you look at the universe, you look at everything. If you like the science and you believe in science, and you see everything in the universe way that is precisely being measured, nothing happened in its own. And how can you don't think there is some power actually causing this to happen? So he have his dog toy in his hands. I said, this is simplest things in your hand. So can you tell me that this is just happening its own? And if you can prove to me that just all those pieces of cloth came together and then just happened, it just magically come together and just been sewn its own and it become the toys for your dog, then I can say to you, everything in this universe, it just happens that there's no power over everything. And he just looked at me and said, well, it does make sense. So that's one of the things that I want to say. I'm sorry. I know we are kind of over the time right now. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair for all of you. Thank you.
Jazakallah. Yeah, it's good to question these things too. I think people around us have a lot of assumptions, and especially us ourselves. Of course, we need to start there. Okay, so inshallah, next week we will start at the 4th point. Let's reflect on the 2nd and the 3rd points. That was pretty dense. So we're looking at total wisdom, apparent in the universe, and then absence of waste. So any reflections you bring next week can focus on those, inshallah. So we'll end here. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة على رسولنا صلوات.